My name is Harry Deitz. I'm a retired journalist and photojournalist who worked for the newspaper over 50 years. I'm also a retired forensic photographer for the Northumberland County Coroner's Office. As a forensic photographer, dates back to when I started working for the newspaper back in 1949. My experience with the police also starts around the same time because I was a professional photographer who got his career for the U.S. Army, occupied Japan at the end of World War II. My job in the service was as a photographer for the 584th Engineer Construction Group, a battalion from the General Douglas MacArthur's 8th Army. And the engineer outfit was assigned to reconstruct a lot of the infrastructure and other byways, areas of Tokyo, which was considerably bombed during prior to the end of the war. And during my tour of duty in Japan, I also had the opportunity to take pictures down at Hiroshima. From being a photographer in the U.S. Army, I learned a lot because I was trained by 2 civilian employees. Yeah, the accident in Shamokin Township, that was the first big one I had. That's how I got involved with the police and the coroner, because I did all the photos of that. They were all black and white. I took pictures at the scene, took pictures in the morgue. The St. Ed's fire was one of the biggest ones I covered. And I got a telephone call from one of Beverly's cousins. St. Ed's Church was on fire. So that was 2 o'clock in the morning. I got the picture of the steeple on fire, and it was right at the height where the whole thing was ablaze. It was natural light. I didn't use flash, didn't use any low aperture or low speed setting.
Sure.
I just used the regular setting.
There was enough light from that fire, probably.
Yeah, I was surprised at how it came out. But I had to do some dodging and burning, but it came out good.
Yeah.
Well, that picture went all over the nation in the Associated Press. There was a murder case where there were 3 girls were picked up in downtown Shamokin by 3 guys. They took these 3 girls up to the strippings, and then some kind of an argument occurred. One girl called the other girl a pig. That's what Joey's Yemba said anyhow. I sat in his confession down in the basement of the state police barracks up on 61. Well, that thing went 2 years before that story broke. A detective by the name of Bobby Alces. And Bobby Alces was keeping me informed of the progress of this case with the 3 girls. We interviewed this guy that broke into the mausoleum up at the cemetery, and he blabbed about the 3 girls on the mountain. He knew where they were. Bobby Alces called me, and he said, "Harry, this is it. Go to Burnside, and the first road to your left." He said, "Go back that road." He said, "They'll be waiting for you." We went back, and there they were. There wasn't anything left of them, but they were buried. They were buried under a bunch of lime and everything else. They threw lime on them. They took them up there, and they murdered them. Then they took them to this spot, old strippings pit, and then they covered them with lime. We had to wait for the medical examiner from Philadelphia. There wasn't nothing left but the three girls but bones. You know, scraps of bones. And he could tell whether it was old or how old it was. And their hair was there, and their skull, part of their skull. Filbert Fillinger was his name, and he was the expert. He was a real expert. So they flew him into Shamokin Airport, and then they took him, he took him to where we were out at the scene. I was out that scene from a Monday morning, 10 o'clock, until about 3 o'clock the next afternoon, taking pictures of bones one at a time. When I got to the scene, I thought, what am I going to do? It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and we had a 2 o'clock deadline for that afternoon edition. Paul McAwee, who was the city editor and one of my best friends and best supporters, I called him before I left the house. And I said, Paul, this is it. I'll give you whatever I get. I'll give you a word for word, whatever I get. And he said, good. He said, you don't want to tell me what it's about. I said, can't. I said, it has to come from the police or the coroner. Hurricane Agnes was another one. Police officer from Ralph Township called me and said, Harry, you better get over here. Elysburg's underwater.
Wow.
Well, I drove over in the middle of the night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was the start of it. From 2 o'clock that morning, I didn't get any sleep. I didn't have anything to eat for 72 hours. So they had Shep Moore cover the city, and I covered the outskirts. I took pictures. I did stories after stories, progress. In fact, there was one boy killed in the flood. Well, at the Coal Hole fire, I got called in the middle of the night, and I went out on it. I took pictures, and I took pictures for the coroner. And that was a big one, too. Apparently, 2 firefighters put a flare in a fold-up car. I have to give Paul Metrokavich credit because he was the reporter I had on, and I left him handle the major story.
Okay.
And I did the sidebars. Okay. One about a couple who heard somebody screaming, and they woke up and they went to the roof of the Journey building and jumped off the roof.
Yep.
And that was it. New Year's, Friday night. Jerry Waugh was at City Hall, and he called me, and he said, Harry, he said, I want you to come up to City Hall. I said, Jerry, I can't do it. I said, I'm in charge here. I said, I've got to put the paper out for tomorrow morning. He said, well, if you don't come, nobody's going to get the story. Nobody. Not tonight, anyway. But I said, okay. So I called Tom Brennan. I said, Tom, I got a story breaking. And I said, they want me. Definitely me, no one else, me. And I thought it was nice of them to do that because they had that confidence in me. And I went up to the city hall, and then he gave me the whole story about these 2 firefighters who were on a lark, set the fire to the Walnut Towers, and not realizing that it would cause the death of 9 people.
Right.
And that was the biggest fire in Shamokin history. I had an opportunity to go to Reading, and so did my son. My son went down first, but it wasn't the small town coverage that I was used to. Small town coverage, I'd put every bit of information I had that I was allowed to use. They wanted me to move down. I couldn't see selling this house up here. And that was one of the reasons I came back. I was so successful because the people who were involved trusted me. And they knew that if they told me something and they said, don't tell anybody or anything. Well, if I could tell you all the stories of all the cases I was out on, I got that trophy there. One of these guys, either Terry or Jay, wrote and told the person at the PNA that I was still taking pictures and I was 95 years old. So I ended up with about 20 awards from the Pennsylvania News Association, what they call Keystone Press Awards. I did a lot of work for the Associated Press. I'd send pictures to them of anything. In fact, one of them was a picture of 3 little girls with 9 little puppies. The 3 little girls were triplets, and they had these 9 little puppies. My wife, Beverly, I never gave her credit like I should have. She backed me up in anything I did, even for the fact when I had to make the decision to leave the Shamokin newspaper to go to work at Reading for 3 years. She always was interested in what I had to do. And I tell you, she was something. I miss her. But she always helped me. I did wedding pictures as a sideline, and she was always there to help. And she always went with me to the weddings and enjoyed it. The big thing was that God was very generous to me. He was with me all the way, and my wife was the supporter all the way. But you know what? Sometimes you get so busy that you forget to say thank you. And I appreciate what you're doing.